Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Rangers Gameplan podcast, where we discuss the week that was the New York Rangers. I am Weston, and I'm joined by Evan, and we're here to talk about the third and fourth game of the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, where the Rangers, in Madison Square Garden, scored 2 total goals in 130 minutes? 130 minutes.
Yeah, and they didn't really come close to scoring any other ones. I think we should start off by saying that part because I wish I could sit here and say that the goalie change is the reason that they tied the series, but it's not. Like they have not tested Schmid yet, or Schmid. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it because they pronounce it both ways on the broadcast, which I think is pretty concerning. That they don't really, like, nobody knows. But, yeah, like I said, I wish I could sit here and say, you know, this goalie's really stole the show for them the past 2 games. That it hasn't been the case. It's not a knock on him. He's definitely made some good saves here and there. But basically every single Ranger shot is directly to his chest. Or it doesn't hit the net at all. So I am so beyond frustrated right now, and we're going to point fingers at a lot of these guys on this team because it's far from acceptable. And I think the main thing that I'm upset about is after Game 4, a little bit during Game 3 as well, or after Game 3, but mainly Game 4, all they talked about was how there was a huge lack of effort. And I just don't understand how there could be a lack of effort in a playoff series, or I guess in any playoff game. Like, that shouldn't be your main issue. If you're going to get stonewalled by a goalie, I won't necessarily knock you for that. If you had a couple bad calls go the other way, that it is what it is. But they just blatantly didn't try. And I think that is the most concerning part for me.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I mean, and again, Schmid, you can only make the saves that you were given. And he did that. He didn't allow any terrible goals, and he should be commended. But holy God, it was muffin after muffin. And I think the most concerning part was how bad the power play looked through those 2 games.
Yeah.
Because you were given... I understand that it's the playoffs, and... You were given gifts. I mean, they're calling some more penalties this year in the playoffs than they have in years previous. They're actually calling some stuff. Granted, it's the wrong stuff, but they're calling things. You were gifted 8 power plays in 2 games. That is the equivalent of seeing Bigfoot riding a unicorn, and you did dickety shit with it. You were given 8 power plays, and you couldn't get 1?
At home as well, and especially when you dominated on the power play the way you did in the first 2 games. And the one thing that I will say, they practiced with Mika on the left circle today, so at least there's some adjustments being made, because after Game 4, Gallant basically said he's not going to change anything on the power play, and then he just immediately changed his mind. So I mean, he's a well-documented liar. It is what it is. But at the bottom line is, that's the change that needed to happen. I guess we'll just start off by saying that, Mika and Panarin have been complete ghosts in the series so far. And, I mean, hopefully Mika being back in his normal spot on the power play, causes him to rip a couple goals and he gets his confidence back. But at the end of the day, this is completely unacceptable from those 2 specifically. There's a lot of blame to go around, but I mean, the lack of even scoring chances 5-on-5 for the top 6 is very concerning.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not a matter of the other teams playing complete lockdown defense. It's not a matter of, you're playing a hot goalie. That's not necessarily the case here. They just have not been trying. And all season, we saw a inconsistency in their effort, and it's really disappointing to me that they're showing it in the playoffs, considering they said they were saving all their energy for this time of year.
They were saving up. to give us this shit show in Game 3 and 4. I'll go on Panarin and Mika for a minute, because that was 4 points in 4 games, or 8 total points, if I'm not mistaken. Is it 8 total points, actually? Or is it 4? Through,
for both of them combined?
Yeah.
Or
4?
I don't know. I think it might be 4. I know Mika has 2 assists. I don't know how many Panarin has, but
I think he also has 2.
I'm not really, like, they haven't really done anything for those points. They kind of just lucked into them. They basically just touched. They just happened to touch the puck on the power play in the first 2 games, and Kreider was just ridiculous. So they got points out of it.
Yeah, I was definitely not going to heavily praise them for those. I just was trying to figure out what that was.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we're on the same page. I mean, either way, regardless of how many points they've had, they've been completely unnoticeable. And they're not even skating hard. And I think that's the main thing that I'm upset about, because I know I've said this to you multiple times. Like, I have watched, though, not just those 2 players, but this whole core group of Rangers right now. I watched basically every single game they played since they put on the Rangers jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell when the urgency is there. Every Rangers fan can. If you follow this team to any extent, you can tell when there's urgency within those guys. And it's not there right now. This series should be over right now. And let me start off by saying, I mean, not to necessarily take credit away from the Devils, because they certainly played better in these past 2 games, without a doubt. However, if you just scored 1 power play goal each in the past 2 games, this series is over.
Mm-hmm.
And Game 3, Panarin had basically a wide open net for a one-timer, and he missed the net. And there's visible frustration there, but I mean, it's just, first of all, I was never sold on switching him to that spot in the first place. Mika Zibanejad is top 3 in the league from that spot. Mm-hmm. So I never understood that. Secondly, like you said before, they had 8 power plays at home, and the Devils still cannot get anything going offensively. I mean, that's 3 goals, if you're not including the empty netter. That's 3 goals within the past 2 games.
In regulation,
and and I mean, oh my God. Like, I just, it's so frustrating to me, because, like I said, I'm not trying to take credit away from the Devils. They definitely stepped their game up, but there's no excuse for this series not being over. We should be talking right now about, this is such a statement they made. They swept the Devils, all that. It's not like they didn't have the opportunity to. Mm-hmm. They could have very, very, very easily won the past 2 games convincingly.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I will mention is Schmid in Game 4 wasn't necessarily awesome. Like, his rebound control was honestly terrible. The Rangers just didn't do anything with it. And there was that one play where he misplayed the puck, and I guess it somehow he didn't catch it fully in his glove, and then it hit the post. Like, he was definitely not on his game in Game 4, and the Rangers didn't even test him. So it's so beyond frustrating. When we came on here, in the last episode, I couldn't have been any more confident because of all the reasons I said last week. And it's just so disappointing that the Rangers basically laid an egg in both their home games. Like, I'll keep saying it, this series should be over right now.
Yeah.
And if the Rangers lose this series, I mean, there's got to be some serious conversations to be had with the coach and with the players as well. And I'll say this, I mean, the one thing that scares me as a fan is, I mean, this roster is not going to get any better than it is for a very long time. This is the best it's going to get. Mm-hmm. And if you don't win it now, I don't know when it's going to happen. Obviously, anything could happen any given year. You just never know. But when we sit here and talk about it right now, you're not going to have, these all-star players basically force themselves onto your team every single year as you're trying to make a cup run. At the end of the day, Tarasenko and Kane were brought here as complementary players. And they've outplayed both Mika Zibanejad and Artemi Panarin.
Oh, by miles.
And that's just unacceptable to me. Not, I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to make it seem like Tarasenko and Kane were great in the past 2 games either. None of the team really was. Um, but the one thing I will say, the defense has not let up so
None.
far in the series. They played the exact same way, and that's what I'm trying to say. Where if you scored one power play goal each in the past 2 games, this series is over. They would have swept them. I'm not asking for much. As much as the Devils stepped up their play in their own end, their top guys are getting completely locked down. Obviously, you have the Hughes goal. I understand that. I know there's going to be Devils fans that are acting like he has 9 goals in this series right now. He's played awesome, but at the end of the day, I mean, Timo Meyer's got nothing done. I still haven't seen Dawson Mercer touch the puck, and Jesper Bratt's got knocked off the puck every time he touches it. So when you're playing that good defensively, and Igor's playing out of his mind like he has, you would have just liked to make it easy and sweep the Devils. But we're here now. Game 5 tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But at this point, you got to win in 6. Like I can't believe we're even this doom and gloom on this episode right now. It just shouldn't have gone to this point.
The fact that the conversation about a game 6 has to be had, or a game 7, it's insane. And I want to hammer home on Mika and Panarin. Panarin is, obviously, you're paying him $11 million. I'm not saying that he has to go out there and get a hat trick in every single game, or get 5 points a night. But he's got to bury that wide open net.
He's got to be a.
You're paying
he's
$11 million
difference
for that
maker.
guy. He's got to be. And they haven't. The
Yeah.
only player in the top 6 that's looked competent for the full series in every single game they've played is Kreider. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's to the point. I feel about a few players on this team currently. I would hang 20 from the rafters tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Right now,
Yeah.
he's the only one that still gives a shit. And it's insane.
Yeah, and
I'm not gonna go.
His effort level doesn't change game to game either. He's the only one on the team that I could say that about.
And it's one of those things. I'm gonna give Panarin the pass on the leadership thing, and I'm not giving him a pass on his pathetic play, which it has been. I looked it up. 4 total points in 8 games for the 2 of them. 2 of those 4 have been 5-on-5, by the way. Anyway, I'm not gonna give it to Panarin for it. Mika Zibanejad, man, has played not even half-assed hockey. He looks like he's at a public skate when he's playing in playoff games. And it's just, this is a guy who, it was a 3-sided coin flip last year of who is going to be the captain. Is it going to be Zibanejad, Kreider, or Trouba? And you could make a legitimate case for any of the 3 of them. Ended up being Trouba. This is one of the big leaders, and he's been awful. And I understand you move him out of his spot on the power play, and he might be a little uncomfortable moving around. That being said, this is a top-name player on your team, a top-paid player on your team. Scores 90 points in the regular season. He has 2 through 4 games.
Yeah, and one of the assists that I can remember was the Kreider goal to make it 1-0. He barely did anything on that pass. Like, he just poked it to the other side and Kreider sniped it. He hasn't made any actual solid plays all series. It's super concerning. And like you said, these are top paid players on the team. And when you think about all the guys you're going to have to re-sign after this season and next season, the reason you're going to have to bend over backwards to re-sign them is because of these contracts. And I wouldn't care if they were producing. And like you said, I'm not expecting them to get a hat trick a game, but you have to be difference makers, and you have to have a consistent level of effort throughout every game in the playoffs. Like I said before, effort should not be an issue right now. No. It just shouldn't be. If you're playing a random game in November against the Coyotes, I don't care what happens. This is the playoffs. I don't understand how the coaches and the players are sitting there and saying that they didn't give enough effort tonight. It just, when I hear that, it infuriates me, because that just shouldn't be the case for any team in the playoffs. And considering the other team was so rattled and they're inexperienced, and the one thing I will say, blowing a 2-0 lead at home in the fashion that you did with no effort is something you would expect to see out of an inexperienced team.
Mm-hmm.
And that just clearly didn't matter. And it like I said, it's just so infuriating to me because that just shouldn't be something we're sitting here talking about. We shouldn't be saying, "Oh, well, the effort was low tonight. We didn't really do much too great. We weren't engaged, stuff like that." It's a playoff game at home. I don't understand how that's even remotely possible that you're not laser focused. It's just I can't wrap my head around that.
It's so much more than just a playoff game at home. On top of that, this is, aside from a few pieces, right? You bring in Kane, you bring in Tarasenko. This is the same team that lost to Tampa a year ago. The last time you were up 2-0 in a series, you got embarrassed and you lose in 6. How do you not, with that opportunity again, to atone for your past sin, bury them under the concrete of Madison Square Garden? How is... Like, again, if the Devils came out in Game 3 and 4 and played the best hockey they have ever played as a franchise, and the Rangers just, they do everything they can, but you're losing the tight games, that's fine. I can live with that if they turned it up. The Devils have been playing fine hockey, but it hasn't been great by any means. It's been solid to okay. I would barely even go as far as to say good. It's the fact that the Rangers, aside from Kreider and the defense and Shesterkin, the offense has done nothing. They have looked invisible. You have your goaltender through 4 playoff games has a below 1.5 goal against and an over 940 save. How is that guy 2-2?
Yeah, I can't believe we're sitting here even talking about that we have to play a game tomorrow. It's unbelievable to me. And like you said, the offense has done absolutely nothing. And the top 6 has been bad, but the kid line has not been great either. I mean, the one thing I will give them credit for is the effort doesn't look like it's an issue for them. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. I mean, they're skating hard, everything like that. But at the end of the day, I'm not willing to give them credit for having a sustained, so much sustained pressure in the offensive zone if they don't get a shot off. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter to me. You could cycle the puck around all you want. But the past 2 games, they've been doing that. They're in the zone for like 30 to 40 seconds. And when they take a shot, it either misses the net or it gets broken up and cleared out. I'm not going to give them credit for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I said this a couple episodes ago when we were previewing the series. I said they have to be the difference maker. Because how many games is it going to take? How many seasons is it going to take for Laughing Kako to finally break out? And if it happens in 2 or 3 years, awesome, cool. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because, like I said before, this is your chance to win it. This is the best the roster is going to be for a very, very, very long time. So if it finally happens in like 2 years, it means essentially nothing because your core will have gotten older by that point, and you don't have as good of a roster. So it's got to happen now. And I'm not trying to put all the blame on them. That's pretty obvious by the fact that we just ripped everyone else apart. But I'm just at the point where I feel like nobody's really expecting much more from them than what they've done. I mean, Hedl was a great playoff performer for us last year. He's done nothing. He hasn't even gotten a good chance. And the thing that sets the Rangers apart in this series, or what is supposed to set them apart, is their depth compared to the Devils. And the biggest part of that is the kid line. If they are playing to their ceiling, the Devils will not have an answer for it. And like I just said, you could cycle the puck around all you want, but you have to put the puck in the net. I mean, you have a 1st and 2nd overall pick on that line. They've had plenty of playoff experience from last year. They've played plenty of games so far. I got to see something. And I'm not talking about some flashy plays here and there. I got to see some legitimate production because they definitely took a step forward this year. But it doesn't matter if you don't do anything in the playoffs. That's all it is. And I mean, it's just so frustrating because it's not even like if you're not going to live up to your draft potential, at least be a Swiss Army knife. Mm-hmm. And neither one, nobody on that line kills penalties. And to be quite honest, I at no point have I seen any genuine first and second overall legitimate talent consistently from Laugh and Kako. I just haven't. They've scored some nice goals. You know, Kako's shown from time to time that he has a great shot. Laugh obviously has done that between the legs move for a goal a few times now, but I'm just not seeing that consistently. And like I just said, the difference maker in this series is them, because the Devils don't have anybody on the third line that have the ceiling that the kid line does. And I'm just not seeing any legitimate production or any consistent, level of scoring chances from them. I just have to see more. And the main blame here has to go on the top guys. They have to be the leaders on this team and they have to produce. But I'm just at the point where I'm not going to sit here and throw a parade if Laugh and Kako score a goal every 16 games. I'm just not going to do it. It's just I'm just at that point now where the honeymoon phase is kind of over for them, for me, and I got to start seeing something, because if the Rangers lose this series and they don't step up at any point in the final 2 to 3 games we have here, I don't know what to say at that point, because like I just said before, how many games is it going to take? How many opportunities is it going to take? And how many seasons is this going to take for them to be what they're supposed to?
And that's the thing. I'll give them the slightest bit of credit. They at least have not been a detriment defensively. It's not that they've been giving up horrible rushes the other way. But offensively, if you told me they haven't actually been on the ice to this point, I would believe you, because I can't think of a single shift where they did anything of consequence.
Yeah, and like I just said, they'll cycle the puck around a lot, but they more likely than not will not get a shot off.
Yeah, there's nothing on net.
It's just so I just don't know why, because I feel like from a lot of this fan base, everybody's trying to make it seem like they've almost carried the offense to this point, and I'm just not seeing that. Like I feel like nobody's willing to actually put the blame on them.
That they are watching.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not willing to give them credit. I'm not willing to give them that much of a pass. Everybody on this team's got to be better, from an offensive standpoint. And that's just what it is. So I don't know what to say anymore, other than it's just put up or shut up for them. Like, it's that simple.
It's a matter of you're not ripping them because they're bad players. We're so hard on players like that because they have that talent. You mentioned Lafreniere's insane through the legs play that he's done more than once to this point. Yeah. They're talented players, and when they show it, they can actually change games. There's been a couple of times, whether it be playoff, whether it be regular season, not a lot, but for one night, one of them will take over a game, and they look incredible. And you're like, all right, there's the moment they break out as a group. This is it. And it hasn't come yet. You see them in this playoff series. They've done nothing. And granted, who among the team has done anything of relevance through games 3 and 4? But I can't give them a party for holding it in the zone. If you hold it in the zone and they score a goal, then I would be more than happy to. But it's not even resulting with shots on net. I mean, they're deflected. Yeah. They're either deflected or they're muffins, or they miss it and they put it in the netting, and then they're off. And
the one thing I will mention is I feel like when the Rangers have games like the past two, where they essentially just get nothing done offensively, a lot of the blame, rightfully so, goes to the top guys. And I think the main critique that people use is they're getting too cute with it, and they love to make that extra pass and everything. And most of that gets said about the top guys, but at this point, that's the kid line too, because you'll watch them and you'll see Kako make a great play to get around a defenseman, and then he'll just turn to his side and try to pass to somebody rather than crashing to the net. And it's so frustrating. And like we've been saying, I'm not willing to abstain them from the blame. I'm just not. Like I said, I'll give them credit for at least showing me they're skating hard, because that just simply hasn't happened from anyone other than Kreider in the past 2 games. But other than that, I mean, they just got to be better. There's at this point, this is go time, and it's just like I said, if the Rangers lose this series and the kid line keeps playing the way they have, there's some serious discussions because at that point, how can you even say that you? How can you make them untouchable at that point? You know what I'm saying? Like
you can't.
If
I mean,
if you're tied up to the cap as it is, and you have to make a decision, how can you say that? Okay, we have to trade someone to bring back Laugh or Kako or both. I just can't confidently say that.
it's a. I mean, you're hitting it on the head, and I can't really add anything to that. It's they, and again, they've had a long time now. They're not. They're still called the kids line, and they're not kids anymore. This is Kako's fourth season in the league, and it's Loft's third.
Yeah, and I mean, just by the way, just look at Jack Hughes.
Yeah,
that's all I really have to say about it.
Yeah,
I
fair.
understand the development path for both of them is vastly different, but it's Kako's had plenty of experience in this league now. I gotta see more. It's that simple.
I would even say,
if I could sit here and say that I can confidently believe that he would double his point total if he got more ice time, then I would say that. But I just can't. I can't confidently say that at this moment in time. It's not about the ice time. It's not about any of that. They just haven't shown much consistently. And I think the one thing that I will say, and I'm not trying to be super negative here, but with the kid line specifically, the bulk of my confidence in them and the buzz around them from us as Rangers fans came when Hedel was on that huge hot streak, where all of them had like 11 points in 10 games. That's where the majority of that came from. Everything else throughout the season has been pretty inconsistent from them. So, like I just said, they've definitely taken a step forward, but it's not been consistent. It hasn't been a giant leap forward or anything like that. The bulk of those points and the bulk of their production came from that like month or two stretch where Hedel was on a bit of a hot streak and all that stuff. It hasn't been a season-long thing for them. So
it's a nightmare for them right now. I mean, and again, they've had the effort, but I'm going to go back to the Jack Hughes thing for a brief second, though. Yeah, they've had very different trajectories. Jack Hughes has not played with the talent that Kako has, and he developed.
Yeah.
Jack Hughes has not been centered by Mika Zibanejad. He has not had a Artemi Panarin on the opposite wing. I like Kako. I hope it works out. I hope that tomorrow night he has a hat trick and I look like a stupid idiot. But you can't talk about, oh, well, they didn't develop them right. They didn't? Oh, they didn't. Yeah. No, because they gave Jack Hughes talent around him and not a fucking disaster in New Jersey. They've had, what, 3 coaches since he's been there? Is
2? Yeah, it might be 3. Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
Oh my.
You bring in Gerard Gallant to be at least not the nightmare that David Quinn was with young players, but you give him a coach that is at least better than Quinn with playing young players. You give him talent around him. I'm sorry. I'm not going to buy the development was different for the two of them excuse anymore. They have talent around them that some players would kill to have, and they haven't been able to do anything with it. I mean, they have not gotten to half a point per game for a full season yet.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they have to be the Jack Hughes 100-point season. I'm just asking you, as a first overall pick, to at least put up a half a point a game. That's not a big ask. I'm requesting the bare minimum. And then, if we're going to go with conversations that we have to have in the offseason, provided this goes ass sideways, there should not be a conversation about Gallant. He's gone. He has to be gone. And you come back to Madison, you get to put in the lineups you want. He got coached under the table in both games.
By a below-average coach as well. If he were to get out-coached by Rod Brindamore, I don't care.
Happens to the best of them.
But I mean, Devils fans do not like Lindy Ruff. This is a guy that's just chose not to play Jonas Siegenthaler in Game 2. He's not a good coach. And this will wrap up my talk about the kid line. But the one thing I will say, their development early on was very bad. With
Mm-hmm.
David Quinn, they played like 8 minutes a night. It
Yeah.
was terrible then, but like I said, they've had plenty of experience to this point. And on the third line, they do get a good chunk of ice time most nights. And when you're talking about even in the regular season, when you're on the third line, you are not necessarily playing against the other team's top guys. You're not. So the fact that they're playing against third liners and probably second or third pair defensemen, and the best they could give me is 39 and 40 points, it's very, very concerning for me. Like you said, I hope they score 8 million points tomorrow, and we come on here the next episode and say, wow, we have to write a written apology, all that stuff. I can't confidently say that they're going to take over a game at any point. I just can't. And like I just mentioned, the fact that you are playing against players that are essentially supposed to be worse than you, and the best you could give me is a goal every like 15, 16 games, it's very, very concerning. So I don't know what has to change. They just have to figure it out.
It's like I'm fueled by pure rage. I know we already said it's insane that we're talking about this. It's insane that this is the conversation we're having after game 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Where now you return to Jersey tied. I was asked yesterday about it. What do you change for game 5? And it's just I would just show the entire game film from game 1 and 2 and then ask where did they go? Because you're not them. Where is that team? It's gone. And
and to touch on that briefly, I wouldn't change anything with the lines whatsoever. No. I don't think Gallant has. I think it's the same line combos during practice today. So we'll see what happens, because that could very well change before the game and during the game tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to change anything about that. You just need the players to do more.
That's the thing.
That's the theme of this. I'm not seeing any effort, and I'm not seeing the production from the guys that you need that from to win the Stanley Cup. So who knows? Like I said, they got to win it in 6 to reel me back in. If they have to claw their way back into this, let's say they lose tomorrow and they have to claw their way all the way back into this and squeak out a series win in 7, I'm not confident.
No.
So, go ahead.
I was going to touch on that, but I'll let you finish and then I'll go with it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I will say is this lack of effort thing just can't happen. And I think, and I'm not trying to sit here and talk shit about the Devils. I'm really not. But the Rangers are lucky that they do not have a super dynamic lineup, because you want to know what's going to happen if you play the Boston Bruins and you just decide not to try. It's ridiculous, because the Devils, they like to get a lot of their chances off the rush, and the Rangers have done a phenomenal job of preventing that. The thing is that the Devils don't necessarily have that grit and grind type of capability within their lineup. The Bruins have legitimately everything within their lineup. So if you just decide to take a night off, you're going to lose by like 9. Mm-hmm. So they better get it together right now, because like I keep saying, the effort should not be something we're even having a conversation about right now. It's so mind-blowing to me, especially after everything the players have said, and especially the fact that the reason their season ended last year is off a 2-0 blown lead. Mm-hmm. It's just, I can't believe we're sitting here and having this conversation, and the fact that they didn't have the mental composure and fortitude to close this thing out, or at least be up 3-1 right now, is so beyond concerning to me.
It's insane. They have every reason to go up 4-0. Just sweep them. Be done with it. You experienced it last year. How do you not roll into game 3 saying, guys, you know what happened? Hey, fellas, you remember what happened last year? A year ago, when we got our asses kicked and embarrassed out of the playoffs? What if we didn't do that again? And they come in and look flat.
And the one other thing I will say about, the topic of effort, the Rangers have looked very soft in the past 2 games. I mean, they have not been hitting anybody, or at least not consistently. You've seen Jack Hughes get hit a couple times, but they don't do that the whole game. They don't finish their checks the whole game. And that, to me, just shows they're just not locked in. They're just not. because the first 2 games they're finishing all their checks and they're playing super super physical, and Jack Hughes couldn't even get a shot off because of that. So I just don't know where that went. Like it's not a matter of, okay, here's the thing. If we were playing the Bruins right now and they tied the series and you kind of just got outclassed, it's a completely different conversation. But like I said earlier, this series should be over right now, and it has nothing to do with the Devils. It's just a matter of the top guys have not cashed in when we needed them to. Yeah. If they simply just took advantage of the power play opportunities, I mean, 5 power plays in game 3 is unbelievable that they didn't score on any of them. And honestly, they didn't look good on any of them either. So it looks like they had a lot of work on the power play in practice. They switched some things around. We'll see what happens. But it is just so beyond frustrating that we should be sitting here, laughing and making fun of the Devils and all that stuff. We should be doing that right now. And now we have to go play a game at the Prudential Center tomorrow, and who knows what Rangers team we're going to get. Because you've got to step up to the plate, especially now that you're not at home anymore and the Devils are feeling confident. I just can't believe we're sitting here talking about this. It really is just unreal.
It feels great to be here doing it, doesn't it? No, I wanted to talk about the whole you might be back on board, if they win in 6. I don't think there's a back on board for me. I'm going to watch every game. I'm going to hope they win. I'm going to cheer for them. You can't. I don't care what happened. You can't do that and get me back on board with the trust. It is any trust I had for that team from game 1 and 2 is gone. And until until Chris Kreider and or Jacob Trouba lift the cup above their heads, I'm not trusting them again. You could win 10-0 in game 4 or in game 5 and 6, and I'd say, nah, that's great. That's fantastic. I'm proud of you. Go show me that I should. It's not. That trust is gone. And I've watched the Rangers before have great seasons and get excited for them. I've watched, I can't say the Jets because, it's been a great decade for the New York Jets the past 12 years.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun over there.
But baseball-wise, I've watched my team win a couple. I've never trusted a team in all of sports the way I trusted the Rangers after the first 2 games. I was like, holy crap, this is it. This is the one. I felt more confident about them than last year the Astros having a 3-2 lead in the World Series. I trusted the Rangers more because I'm like, holy shit. They go into the Devils. They go into their house. They go to the Prudential Center. They kick them off the ice in the first 2 games. They do nothing right. Nothing. The Devils have nothing. Yeah. And then you do that at home. It's not even a matter of you lost. I could stomach the fact that you lose because the Devils outplayed you.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of you were right. The Rangers simply allowed the Devils to come back into the series for no good reason. I credit the Devils for not making stupid mistakes and Schmid making the saves that were pretty much, handed to him into his chest. But they did nothing that should scream tying the series up. You scored 2 goals in each game, legitimately. I'm not counting the empty netter. It's irrelevant. It takes a team 191 minutes to beat Igor Shesterkin 5-on-5. And they tie it up.
Yeah.
It took over 3 games before Shesterkin allowed that first even-strength goal. And it wasn't even his fault. That wasn't even a bad read. Dougie Hamilton was left wide open on that goal. And it's the bare minimum that we're asking for. Because this wasn't even a matter of the Rangers, they gave, 50%. They did not try. They just were out there because the games had to be played. If they would have given it 50% effort, they might win both games, honestly. If they would have given it just the slightest bit of care, it could be tied.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that you didn't even see them take it up a notch at any point throughout the games either is very, very strange to me. Because at least yeah, even if you lay an egg in the first couple periods, I want to see you come out flying in the third, even if you end up losing the game. But I just didn't see that. I didn't see any ramp up in urgency from them, after the intermissions. And I just don't understand what's being said in this locker room. And I think the blame for that aspect has to go on the coaches and then has to go on Truba, because I just don't understand how that is even remotely possible that you don't up your intensity level at any point throughout the game. And the fact that you're not even ready to go for a playoff game is concerning in itself. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, last year, we talked a lot about how by the time they got to Tampa, they were gassed and all that stuff. And going into this year, you would like to close, the series out quicker so that you don't burn yourself out. That's out of the window now.
Yep.
You would have liked, a series win in 4 or 5, and then probably 5 or 6 in the next round, and then you're in good shape. But if you somehow stumble your way into playing the Boston Bruins in the conference finals, and your excuse is that you're tired after you've already had 2 games where you're not trying, it's just I don't want to even have to talk about that. And it's just so beyond frustrating right now. There's so many things to say. There really is. I guess we'll just have to hope they win in 6, but it's just concerning that the Devils have not even come close to their final form yet, and the series is tied.
Yeah.
And that's also terrifying, because let's say
Devils
tomorrow
simply
they just
play
flip
their
the
game,
switch.
oh
Yeah.
God, it's
It's I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, we gotta see more out of the top guys, and just the whole offense, as a whole. The one thing that I will give this team some credit for, or 3 specific players, would be the fourth line.
great job by them.
It obviously no points or anything like that, but I mean, when the Rangers have absolutely no intensity, they'll have shifts where they'll go out and just hit every Devils player on the ice at that current moment. And I at least appreciate that for trying to, spark the team. That's about all the credit I'll give anyone on this team, offensively right now.
On the core.
Yeah, and the thing I'll say, I mean, the defense has played great, but in the past 2 games specifically, Trouba's taken a couple stupid penalties, and I just haven't really seen that full level of intensity that was there in the first 2 from the defense. They've still played great, but I don't know. It's just everyone on the team right now. I'm not necessarily trying to blame the defense, but you would just like to see a little bit more out of maybe Keandre Miller specifically. That's really the only complaint I have about them. But I mean,
it's nitpicking with the defense. Like
it's nitpicking, and it's just. I think the point I was going to bring up is, we mentioned it when we were previewing the series, but Keandre Miller he should have been an all-star in the first half, and whether you like it or not, he's definitely fallen way off from that point since then. So like I said, the defense has played great, but if everyone just plays the way that we know they can, they'll be fine. And it's frustrating when you shoot yourself in the foot. I came on here last week and said the only reason that they don't sweep them is if they shoot themselves in the foot, and look where we are now. So, I
feels
pretty
great
much
being right.
Yeah, I pretty much, touched on everything that I wanted to rant about. But like I said before, if the Rangers lose this series, there has to be some serious conversations. Panarin is not far off at all in terms of salary from Connor McDavid. So you have to see way more from him. You just have to. And I know a lot of this fan base is trying to be positive, and I get it. We don't have to sit here and be completely negative, and you want to believe in your team and everything. But a lot of people are trying to say, everyone was predicting the series was going to go to 6 or 7 anyway. But I'm not on board with that, because your expectations have to change. And the one thing that I will say that is pretty much off topic, but you'll probably laugh at this. The one thing that relates to this is our beloved New York Jets.
Oh, God.
And they weren't expected to make the playoffs, but you were above 500 by 3 games, 3 separate times. So your expectations have to change at that point.
Yeah.
And you have to expect to make the playoffs at that point. Same situation here. If you dominate in the first 2 games, I'm no longer expecting this series to go 7. And it shouldn't have even gone above 4 or 5. And now we have to play games 6 and, or 5, 6, and 7. So it's...
Why'd you have
it's
to
just,
bring that up to me? God.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I don't want to hear it when people are like, well, we predicted 6 or 7 anyway. No, the expectations have to change, and this is an inexcusable breakdown from this team, and especially that they just blew a 2-0 lead.
Yeah.
In the same calendar year as this. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Like, if you switch the games around, Devils win game 1, which I thought they were going to. The Rangers have that dominant game in game 2. And then in game 3, the Devils strike back with a close win. And then game 4, the Rangers dominate again. I'd feel great.
Yeah.
Sequencing is everything. It's not a matter of, oh, well, I thought the series would go 7. I thought it would go 7. I think my actual on the bracket was maybe 6. Rangers in 6 might have been.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I thought it would go 6 or 7. I thought it was going to be a close fight. But I thought every game was going to be a close fight. I didn't think the Rangers were going to come out and play 2 of debatably the best games I've ever watched them play as a unit, to then completely stop trying in game 3 and 4. You can't
at home. Yeah,
have... Your expectation has to change. You have to see what's being presented. My expectation didn't change for no reason. They didn't... It changed because the New York Rangers set a higher standard for themselves than I had for them going into the series. That's what changed. I went into it watching the Rangers that played the entire regular season, where they would have stretches where they look great, but then stretches where they would just look half-assed and uninterested. They come into the playoffs, and I think, yeah, 7 feels right. Then you show me that, in fact, oh no, my dear Weston, we were not a bad team or a mediocre team. We are actually incredible, and this is what we look like when we give it everything we have. And it was dazzling. It was so good that I said after game 2 I would take the Rangers over the Devils, which I still, in my heart of hearts, believe I was right after 2 games. However, now, you go out there and lay eggs in game 3 and 4. And I'm going to say it. I said it after the video on game 4. And in the moment, I was like, I feel like this is a sentence that I'm going to regret later on. And you know what? It's been 2 days. I've slept on it twice. I don't regret it. I still feel it. Do what you're going to do in 6. I cannot mentally handle this game going to game 7 against the Devils.
Yeah,
Win or
and
lose
there's
in
no
6,
reason
I don't
for
care.
it to.
Win or lose in 6. But if I have to sit here on Monday night and watch this team play a game 7, I am going to be miserable the entire time. Until it is over with and you win, and then I'll be like, all right, cool. You got to go play the Canes, eh? Or the Islanders, who just seemingly will not die.
Yeah.
Which...
And by the way, those are 2 teams that if you have a lack of effort on any given night, they will destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Rangers are by far the better team than the Islanders. But if they play the way they did in games 3 or 4, they will probably not score a goal.
I'm going to say something that should piss off Rangers fans, which is, the Islanders, hey, they're trailing 3-2. They've gotten killed, I believe, in a few of those games. Effort hasn't been the problem for them. They've been skating hard. They've gritted out their wins. They're giving it everything they have with so much less than you have. That's what gets me, is these other teams are getting it done. Seattle has taken a lead, if I'm not mistaken, over the defending champions. They've tied it, excuse me. They have a tied series with the defending Stanley Cup champions. With so much less than the Rangers have. You have in your top 6 5 players that by their respective franchises that they spent the majority of their career with are probably getting their numbers retired. You have 5 players that if you drew in Chell, you'd think, sweet, got my franchise player for the next however long in your playthrough. You'd be set. Yeah. And you've done nothing. You've allowed them back in. just it's
And I can't stress this enough. The fact that the Devils are back in this and they were let back into it without any playoff experience is more a show of how the Rangers played than how the Devils played.
yeah. At least
That's
when you
just
do
all
that,
it is.
yeah. At least when you do that with the Lightning, and you allow them to crawl back in. Yeah, they won back-to-back cups before that series, so can kind of see how it happened.
And you didn't even expect to win it in the first place, like
this is the first time they've been there. I mean, the first time everyone but Vanacek has been in the playoffs, and he made what? He isn't even starting now. What am I saying? He got benched. Their only playoff vet got benched for a guy named Schmid, which sounds like you're clowning on a guy named Smith. And now, and now you get to go experience the super fun times that is Game 5. It's... The phrase unacceptable has never fit better for describing a team. It just...
I mean, I've pretty much harped on everything I wanted to. It's just, I guess I'll just finish off by saying, like you said, just win or lose in 7, and we'll have the conversations that need to be had either way after that. But it's just for this, or I mean, win or lose in 6, and we'll have the conversations that we need to. But oh man, I just can't believe we're at this point, and the fact that I feel this way about this team after I expected them as a lock, basically, to make the conference finals after the first 2 games. And it's not like we were necessarily getting ahead of ourselves as fans. It's a matter of they've shown that they can do that when they give 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you not think that they can make the conference finals if they play like that? Who knows? Maybe they just do the same thing in the next 2 games. I would obviously love that. But it's just so concerning that they have yet to show the ability to just close a series out comfortably as a group together so far. And the fact that they couldn't mentally pull it together to ensure that you don't, wash away another 2-0 lead is just I can't believe it from this group that essentially talked about how much they didn't want to do that again and how hungry they are to make a deep playoff run and win the whole thing. It's just if all you're talking about is that the playoffs are all you care about, and then you show that you don't care 2 home games in a row, it's just I like you said, unacceptable is just not even the word at this point.
I mean, there's no personnel change. There's nothing you do to the team. You have everything you need. I'm simply begging on bended knee for this team to just play the way they did. You don't have to do anything you haven't done before. Play like you did in Game 1 and 2, and you'll win the series in 6. It's not a question. It's It's insane that this is the conversation we're having. But yeah, I got nothing else. I mean,
I'm so just angry, but I've pretty much, lit up everyone on the team that I wanted to, and I guess just what we're trying to say is just the top guys just got to give me more, and the offense as a whole just has to give way more in this series.
If you're given 8 power plays in 2 games and you can't get 1, I'm sorry, but that is not a big request.
Especially that they haven't even really been able to get set up on the power play as well. You know what I'm saying? If they're just getting completely, robbed by Schmid, it's just that would be a completely different conversation. But they can't even get set up, and they can't even get shots on the net. So that is not that. You know what I'm saying? That's not a telltale of how the Devils are playing. That just shows that you are not locked in. And I just can't believe that. So I've definitely said what I've had to say, and I guess we'll just see how this plays out. But I just can't believe that we are even at this point. So I guess we go tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's my fault for thinking anything would ever be easy for this team. But
let's just simply blame the Jets for getting the Rogers trade done, because the New York teams can't all be good. It's the
Yeah,
Jets'
they
fault.
can't all prosper at the same time. So that's that's all.
Big thanks
That's
to
all.
them.
Yeah.
So we'll go again Saturday, and I swear to God, we better be talking about the conclusion of the series one way or another. Because if we have to come back on Monday night, that'll be an experience.
Yeah.
But
So another, game 5 tomorrow, and then hopefully either way it's over on Saturday,
Yep.
and we don't have to deal with a game 7. But oh man.
what a vibe change from the last one to this one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Thank you all for listening to the angered ramblings of the two of us. We'll be back on Saturday night or Sunday night to discuss Game 5 and 6. Until next time, thank you all for listening, and go Rangers.
Yep. Go Rangers. God help us all.